One of my biggest goals that I had achieved was I wanted to earn $100,000 in a day. You were actually shifting your consciousness from this reality to a parallel reality that already has everything you want. Change your self-image, you'll attract easier, you'll manifest easier, you'll accomplish easier overall. No matter where you're at in life right now, no matter what's going on, no matter how things are going, something bigger and better can still happen.
What are the biggest misconceptions that people have about manifestation? In this episode, I am joined by Scott Haug, a manifestation expert who has helped thousands unlock their full potential through mindset shifts and the law of attraction. He specializes in practical techniques for turning goals into reality and attracting success. He became a top consultant for Bob Proctor in under 2 years before launching his own seven-figure coaching business. Scott recently won a school games competition led by entrepreneur Alex Hermosi and continues to teach people how to manifest success and create the life that they desire. Enjoy this interview with Scott Haug. What are the biggest misconceptions that people have about manifestation?
Yeah, that's a great start question. Just to make sure that a lot of law of attraction stuff out there is very surface level and it's misconstrued what's true, what's not. So I'd say top three misconceptions. Number one, you always have to stay high vibe in order to manifest. You always have to be in this very high vibe frequency. You always have to be way up. You always have to be kind of bouncing off the walls, almost kind of idea in order to manifest. Certainly not true. That's the first one. Second one is that you can never feel negative feelings, or else, oh my gosh, you're going to manifest negative things. So a lot of the things out there, like don't feel negative things. Don't say the word debt. Don't say any words that are limiting. And that's farthest from the truth as well, because when you actually feel the emotions that are coming through, you release them. And when you don't feel them, you actually push them down, which you're actually manifesting from. So it's actually the opposite. And I'd say the third one, which is a very big one, is the law of attraction isn't working for me. It's kind of like saying gravity's not working for me today. Well, nobody says that, right? Because it's always working. So law of attraction is always working, but are we working it to bring in more things that are desirable? Or is it seemingly working against us? So it's always working, but it's one or the other. How are we working it is big. So those would be my top three right off the bat.
I was actually walking yesterday and it was freezing cold outside where I am. And the person I'm with was just focused on the cold. They would not stop talking about it as we're in it. And I said, just don't focus on it, focus on something else. Is that right? Because what I'm gathering is maybe that's not right. Maybe we needed to focus on it and let it go in order to, I know this is a very simple, you know, top layer basic thing, but I think it's something that people could probably relate with, like something very tiny like that. What would you do in that scenario?
Yeah, it's very relatable because it is true that whatever we put our focus on, we'll start to feel according to, and we'll start to ultimately, over many days, bring it into our life more, right? So the idea here is what I would suggest for any clients, and we do this actually a lot as the weather example. So it's a perfect example because a lot of people prefer sunny all the time. So when it's not sunny all the time, they have a heck of a day, right? So the weather's controlling, do I feel good and happy today? Or do I say, oh, it's gloomy outside and dark, right? And their emotional state is based on that. Instead, what we could do is go within, if the person is focused on the cold, what we could say is, what is triggering inside of you in this moment in the cold? So you could go a little deeper with and be like, okay, well, the cold is making me feel like I'm not in control. The cold is making me feel very unhappy. Like what's actually coming up? And if we can actually grab that, then we can see the healing that might need to take place. And then from the healing, we could say, how do we prefer all of the weather? What's the good in the cold? What's the good in the snow? Here we have like a foot and a half of snow in New York. And it's like, what's the good in the snow? It's very, very peaceful. If you actually sit there and watch it, whether you're outside or inside, it's very peaceful. So once you see the healing, then you can find the good in it. And then it starts to, so I think I really like your approach of like, don't focus on the cold. Instead, like focus on something different. What can we find the good in? I think it's a great wavelength for people. So
I love that. And I want to also go back to what you were saying about feeling like you need to be high vibe all the time,
yeah.
because that has to be something that a lot of people connect with. I know I can be that way too. If I catch myself having a negative thought, I instantly want to, look the other way and not acknowledge it. What's happening there? Why do we want to not be high vibe all the time?
Yes. So a funny thing about being high vibe all the time is people start worrying that they're worrying, right? So you
Yeah.
start doubting, or you start worrying, you're like, now I'm worrying more because I just had a worry thought. So it goes in this endless cycle. So it doesn't really help because in that state, we're not really doing things. So here's my take on it. And this is what I helped all my clients with, I helped myself in so many wavelengths of this. When we're in a high vibe, we must have a low vibe at another point. That's why people have roller coasters, because what people are thinking is, I need to stay in this high frequency. You actually don't need to stay in a high frequency. What we need to do is change our core identity to automatically be at that frequency that we're looking for. So, what I tell my clients, instead of looking to be high, what that sounds like is like drinking a pot of coffee and you're like running around crazy, like this kind of high. Instead, you want to get neutral. You want to get feeling that it's natural, because the objective of manifesting is the thing needs to feel natural in my life now, as if I already have it, then it will come to pass. Not that I'm overly excited about it now or staying in this positive thought. Some of the most negative people on the planet are the best manifestors, because it's not about negative thinking, it's about what feels natural in your life. Whatever feels natural comes to pass. So that tag that goes like, okay, I'm in a high vibe, now I'm in a low vibe. What that is a teeter-totter between, I'm trying to think positive thoughts, but my automatic habits, usually from trauma, from childhood, my programming, all of that, are in the low vibe. And it's so much willpower to keep you high, and then it brings you low, and then high, and then brings you low. So that's what's going on there, is there's a part of you that's trying to grow and be here, but then there's another part of you that's programmed to be down here. And that's why it's a roller coaster up and down. So we can avoid that roller coaster completely as long as you know the objective of true manifestation.
Okay, you said that we need to feel as if we already have what we're manifesting.
Yeah.
Instantly, everyone thinks, how can I do that? How can I feel like I have $1 million in the bank or feel like I'm with the love of my life without having it physically here with me?
Yes. Love this question. It's a perfect follow up for everybody asking. Okay. You want to start understanding that the thing you're wanting, you know the essence of it already in your soul. So if you're trying to attract your soulmate, for example, what are you going to feel when you get your soulmate? Complete, whole, excited. If those are the things that you think are going to happen when you arrive there, that's why it hasn't happened. When you arrive, we want it to feel natural, full of love only. So let me kind of break that down, because that sounds pretty complex. The idea is that I can already in imagination fill my spirit with love, and that's the frequency of my soulmate. It doesn't have to be, I already have lived it, I've already done it. We're not talking about the physical plane. We're talking about the one emotion that you would have as if it was already done. So if somebody wants to earn $1 million, they're like, I haven't earned $1 million. I don't know how that feels. Right. If you look at the physical plane, you haven't done it. On the spirit plane, what's the one emotion that you can tap into? What would it feel like? Abundance. So what you do in this case is, I know what abundance feels like. And people are like, I don't even know how that feels like. You do though, because it's not abundance financially, it's an abundance of oxygen. How does that feel right now? It feels pretty good that you don't have to think about where's the oxygen going to come from in 10 minutes from now, right? I have an abundance of electricity powering the electronics. That's nice. I didn't have to go through and wire everything today. I have an abundance of love in my life, maybe from family or friends or a spouse. So you look for evidence of the emotional state, and that will build the consciousness to feel like it's natural now. So even though you haven't had the $1 million in your life, you do know at a soul level what it feels like. You don't compare it to the finances, though. You just say, what other elements of abundance? Abundance of oxygen is the same feeling as an abundance of money. And that's where you want to tap into.
All right, I'm tapped into the abundance of all of the things around me, the oxygen, the trees outside, the electricity, everything. Now, how long until the money comes?
Yeah, right.
Mm.
Because it's kind of like tricky. It's like I'm doing all this work and it's like, yeah, it's all great. It's in the invisible, but like I want the money now, right? So partnered with this, you do have to get familiar with a better financial state within. So that's where your imagination comes into play. That's where your visualization. That's where when people do affirmations or gratitude lists, these are all great tools. They do work. But what you want to do is start seeing yourself with the money already. What would your bank account look like with an extra $100,000 in it? Maybe you've never really seen that in your mind. So you practice. And my analogy to this is if you want to know money, you want to have it in your life, you need to practice at it. If you want to learn the piano, you got to practice at it. You're not going to be good. The language of the piano and your fingers moving and the language of the music and the scripts, you're not going to be able to do it very well at the start, but you practice every week. Money is a language to me. And a lot of people don't know the language. So on a daily basis, you study the language in your visualization. What would it be like if I saw in my checking account $20,000? What would it be like if I see in my savings $300,000? Right. So you start training and practicing your mind maybe 3 to 4 days a week, like you're going to the gym, and practice seeing that as if you already have it. Practice seeing the language of it. And it's really hard for the first couple of weeks. So you got to get over that threshold to keep practicing, and you'll start having an identity of, I am familiar with money in my mind. It's tricky. It takes a lot of effort, though.
So basically, we need to take the time factor out of it. Like, don't look at it with a timeline.
Yes, because we live in a very I want it now culture right now. I mean, you can order something on Amazon Prime in most cities in the United States, at least. You can have the package the same day, right? Instacart, get groceries same day. We want things now in the culture that we're in right now. But the law of attraction didn't change. If Amazon Prime came out, it's not like there's a law of attraction prime that came out, right? So the laws are still in the same thing. There's a time gap between the spirit world and the physical world. The more you focus on the time, the more you focus on the absence, because every subject has two subjects. Do I feel it or do I not? And when I'm focused on the time, I feel it's not here. I correspond with that energy from the universe. It's not here. And I get more of these circumstances where I'm not manifesting the result I'm wanting. So take away from time and just allow yourself to be more learning the language of money, finding evidence of abundance, and give yourself 30 days without looking, right? 30 days. Let me just not look. Let me experiment. Let me test this out like a scientist, a mental scientist, and let's see how it goes. Because the time thing is a big thing. You keep focusing on it, it's going to keep delaying more and more.
Could you share a personal story of how manifestation helped you achieve a major goal?
Yeah, absolutely. One of my biggest goals that I had achieved was I wanted to earn $100,000 in a day. It sounds nuts to me when I first said it because I hadn't even earned $100,000 in a month yet. But I was like, that would just be like the coolest thing ever. Right. So it took me about 5 years to actually manifest it completely from start because I was starting from scratch, no business, no money. I had nothing going for me. I was an engineer in corporate for 6 months and I transitioned to being an entrepreneur. I had no idea what I was doing. I was all over the place. I started to study personal development, but I really didn't understand it. This was many years ago now. So I set that goal. I kind of was just chipping away at my money game, understanding it, taking courses, programs, mentorships, all this stuff, right? But I kind of set that goal and left it for actually a couple of years. I came back to it about 4 years in, right? So it was like 1 year gap. I said, I'm going to make this work. Let's see if I can experiment with something gigantic like that. So every day, what I would do is I liked luxury music when I was listening into like a money understanding or knowledge. It just made me feel like I was living in like Dubai, or I had like a gold airplane that I was flying through the sky with. It was a nice feeling for me. So every day I'd listen into this luxury style music, chipping away, running my business, opening up channels, doing different things. About 20 days in, I started to feel something was happening. Like I just felt like it was annoying. I just felt like I feel wealthy and rich right now, but I've had nothing change. Something clicked. And that's what I'm talking about, the language. Like you just start to, that's a normal thing for you to start feeling, this luxury lifestyle. It's like, oh, this is getting good. I don't know what's about to happen, but I just feel like something big is going to happen. And 2 weeks from then, I actually had a big launch that I was going to be doing. I had some things set up in the business. I was opening up channels because law of action is very important. Law of attraction, another mishap, right? You got to take action. You got to open up channels. You got to do your side of things. And it came down to I prepared for this launch, and the day of, I was like, well, let's see what happens. I really wasn't expecting anything big. And within that 3 to 4 hour time period, I'd earned $120,000 that day, but I didn't even know it. I
Mm.
signed on to my email and I started to see boom, 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 all these sales come through. It was $120,000 in that day. After the fact, I felt like it happened. But the crazy part about it was I wasn't excited. I wasn't out of this world like, oh my God, I can't believe it happened. It felt like, of course, of course it did. Because it already clicked as if I already had it, but I didn't guess on when it was going to come and everything else. And that was to this day one of the biggest manifestations I've been able to pull in. Simple process using these same knowledge pieces, but like I say, it wasn't overnight. It wasn't within weeks. I said it a long time ago, and then I worked towards that over the years and months. So
To me, I hear you say, I became the person who that would be a normal occurrence.
mm, yeah, well said. Love that. Exactly. Yeah.
And you also, as you're talking, it reminded me of a manifestation tool that I did a couple times years ago and I told people about, but I need to do again because it's been so long. And it's where you write out as if you're waking up in the place that you want to be, you're living the life you want to live. You go through all the emotions, you feel this way when you wake up, then you go over to this room and you do this, and then you check your bank, and then you do this, and you go about your day. Like you paint a picture of your perfect day, and then you record it on your phone
Mm.
with your voice as if that's your reality, and then you listen to it every single morning and every single evening. So I'm wondering, do you have any tools or tips or tricks that people could implement today to help them manifest what they want?
Yeah, the practice you just said there is phenomenal. That's really great because you're painting a picture of not only what it looks like, but it has a feeling to it because every
Mm.
thought has an image. So if you see yourself going around in your penthouse or your beachfront house or whatever somebody's dreaming about, you start to really be with that atmosphere and it starts to make you feel really good. A couple of practices I use with my clients a lot, and I still do to this day myself. I have two main ones that I use. The first one is the 5 step manifestation process, and then another one is a form of mirror work. So the first one is 5 steps. I'll break it down simple and then explain a little bit. You step number one, decide on the intention, and you write it down in the present tense. I just now received, I now have. Step two, you close your eyes and see yourself in possession of it. So you see your bank account increase, you see yourself with the soulmate, you see yourself living the dream home. Step three is the feeling, it activates it. So you match your inner thoughts and you say, wow, it's happened. Of course, this has happened. I'm so grateful this has happened. So you have your thoughts match what you're seeing. After about 30 to 60 seconds, you open up your eyes. You realize nothing has changed. Step four is letting it go. You actually don't ever think about it ever again. You just plant the seed and let it go. And in this moment, Neville Goddard, the great author, coined the phrase the bridge of incidents. I love that phrase because in step four, you allow the universe to bring all of the events and incidents to understand how it's going to come in. So allow it to play out. Allow the, as Abraham Hicks would say, the cooperative components to play out, all these different terms of the same thing. Let go of it. And then step 5, repeat at least 5 times a day with all the different intentions out there. I just now received a free cup of coffee. It's a classic. I now have a great parking spot, right? I now have $5,000. I now have $100,000, right? You just vary all these different intentions. You get used to asking and believing while the receiving is coming towards you. So that's my first practice. I do it every day still. And my second one is you look yourself in the mirror and you do it in the third person. So I would say, Scott Haug is now earning fill in the blank. You look at yourself in the eyes for minimal 3 minutes. You put on a timer. So instead of I am statements, you're looking yourself in the mirror and it feels like you're talking to you from you. So you're kind of commanding, saying, this is now who you are. This is your core identity. And as you do that, something happens around a minute and a half, 2 minutes. You'll just start to feel, I kind of believe this. This feels like this is doable. And those two techniques, if you do those every day, you'll start to really believe in the invisible, believe in your intentions. Absolutely.
How does the law of attraction actually work, and why do some people struggle with it?
Yeah. I have a definition of law of attraction. It's a little different than the normal likes attracts like kind of idea. I believe a little bit different, that when you're manifesting something, attracting something in, you are actually shifting your consciousness from this reality to a parallel reality that already has everything you want. Now that sounds a little what are
How?
parallel realities? Right, right. And I want to talk about that. So the consciousness can actually drift from any identity into any parallel reality at any time. Okay. Parallel reality, what I mean by that, doesn't have to be some sci-fi movie, right? Like all these changing worlds and creatures around. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is a different energy frequency band that you're entering, like a TV station. Change the channel, you're changing the frequency band. So essentially, we're changing the channel. We're kind of moving it to activate other things. So within the change of consciousness to another reality, that other reality has the people saying yes, where your other reality, maybe people were saying no, because you're a mirror of consciousness. So a lot of people that I work with in business, they have a lot of prospects saying no, can't afford it. I don't have enough time. Things aren't, all these objections. When they shift their consciousness into this other reality, those same people start saying yes, because you get to manifest different versions of people at any given time. So what I believe is you're moving into this other reality and you're attracting in the things you're wanting because your consciousness is now in a yes mode. Yes, it's happened. Is that makes sense? I know that for the probably listener, and it's very complicated to say. Usually I do this very visually as well. So
Yeah, no, it does. And I'm wondering too, can that happen as far as shifting into another reality? Is that what happens when we're dreaming? And
mm,
can we somehow hack into our dreams to help with the law of attraction?
yeah, great question. So whether it's a dream world, spirit world, multiple realities on the physical plane, I believe they're all different realities, all different parallel verses of ourselves, or a multiverse. And in the dream world, to me, it's a first delineation of being able to have clairvoyance or seeing ahead of time. And sometimes it is mumble jumble that your brain is just, reconciling throughout the day and creating memories and all of that. For sure, science shows all of that. And in the state of the dream world, what I like to do just before bed is I start to, as I'm drifting off into sleep, I'll see my goal and intention. So it's the last thing I try and implant in my mind before I sleep. And in that sleep state, Neville Goddard actually talks about this quite a bit, but in that sleep state, it's easier to drop the thought down to subconscious mind while you're sleeping. And then your subconscious mind is working 24/7. It kind of initiates a couple of things. And often you will have dreams that correspond to realities that are like the intentional reality that you want. You could go into dream control. Obviously, there's a lot of science in that. I haven't really done too much of that, but I have done a lot of different things like plant medicine, ayahuasca, iboga, different things to also stimulate my consciousness to understand how to heal, number one, but what these other realities are. And plant medicines are a great gateway because it shows you these other realities are just as real as your physical one. But we live in a very science oriented society that if it's not proven, we don't believe it. Right. So I think there's a lot of realities we can jump into, if you will, but it takes a little bit of time to understand what those realities are just to even believe that they're real, that you can actually do that.
Do you do that often? And how do you specifically, how do you go about that in your daily life?
Yeah. So these practices, I've done them so long and so often that my conscious awareness is already believing in the invisible all the time. It wasn't like that though. This has taken me a lot of years. It's like a lot of training, like the piano that we talked about, learning a new language, learning to dance, karate, like all the things. It takes a long time to become really good at it. So when I walk throughout my day, it's not like I'm seeing things, but what I have is an awareness that there's invisible forces all around us. So it kind of just happens automatically now. Like when I'm walking around, I'll try and pretend like I'm seeing the walls vibrating because we live in a vibrational reality. So I'll try and see the walls vibrating. And without me thinking, I'll be like, oh yeah, all this oxygen is around me right now, but I can't see it. Or how our phones work. There's Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and all these different frequency bands going all the time, but I can't see it. But in my imagination, while my eyes are open, I look to see these things in the invisible. It's not actually there. I'm seeing in my imagination, right? And it trains me to be in these realities where things are more possible than not. So it's a little tweak in awareness, keeping our awareness on the invisible force are more powerful than the physical. And you train your mind to see that. And it's not, doesn't become a technique or practice. It becomes more of a lifestyle. It's just a little different of a approach, I think.
I imagine we lost some people when you said that we live in a vibrational reality and the walls are vibrating.
Yeah.
At the same time, I do know that with our vision, our eyesight, we can only see a fraction of what is actually around us. I mean, even we know for a fact that dogs see more, hear more. I think they see more. I know they hear more, but there's other species that see more than we're capable of seeing. How can you explain, that the walls are vibrating and that there are these invisible things happening around us?
Yeah, I just did this with one of my clients that was really struggling with believing in the invisible because he's very
Mhm.
analytical, very concrete, wants facts, right? And I really appreciate anybody who's skeptical because I was the biggest skeptic. Like I said, I was an engineer. Like if you're going to make an airplane fly, you need to know how it's going to fly for safety, right? So you need to know beforehand. You can't just guess. I took a class in university though at the same time. It was about vibrations and how the vibrations in airplanes actually destroy them. It's fatigue, they call it. So even as engineers who are the most concrete, you do chemistry, the most concrete things shows that there's invisible things going on. So what I had this client do is I said, just research quantum physics. Sounds crazy. You don't even have to know science. Just go on, we have AI. It's the perfect thing. Go on ChatGPT or something else and say, explain quantum physics to me as if I was a fifth grader. It'll explain some things about the invisible forces, the observer experiment that when a human being observes something, it changes its state. And then you look into, okay, well, what's everything made out of? Well, everything's made out of fundamental elements, right? That's what chemistry is all about. In chemistry and different things, it shows that why is my cup plastic and why is my phone made of other materials? Because they're operating at different frequency bands with the electrons that are going on in these materials. So it shows that the microscope, the smallest level, that things are vibrating, you just can't see it. So that's what I mean by that. I'm not saying something mystical and crazy like I'm seeing the walls vibrate and I'm seeing all these ghosts around and things. What I'm more saying is that at the fundamental quantum physics level, everything is an energy. We're an energy, and we can correspond to different energy bands in our reality. So hopefully that helps any skeptics out there. And I appreciate being skeptical because you shouldn't just believe things to believe things because somebody said it. So as you start to research a little bit more, it helps.
Mhm. Yeah, I really like how how you do have the engineering background, and so you're able to explain these things in a more practical, l- not layman's terms, but to the average person who doesn't want to hear, the fluffy woo-woo
Yeah.
type response. So it's really helpful. So when it comes to attracting success, what role does self-image play?
I believe self-image is the number one thing out of anything. Because what self-image is to me is the same words as identity that we've used already, and the same words as self-concept. To me, self-image is everything you accept and believe to be true about you and your world. So if you are always earning $60,000 a year salary, your self-image is connected. I am somebody who earns this. And if somebody said, you're going to earn $400,000 in salary, you might say, wow, that would be great. But you probably don't feel it or believe it to be true. You're like, yeah, okay, that sounds cool. I love that, but doesn't sound right. If somebody has a self image of $400,000 a year salary, though, and they're used to that, basically it'll keep that automatic. So you say you're going to earn $400,000 per year in salary. They're like, of course, that's what I normally do, right? They're used to that. Now, the self image is like a thermometer or a thermostat where it raises and measures the level of temperature in the room, right? The thermostat, when it's cold, it's snowy outside, you open up the doors and the windows, it gets cold, it reads, we got to heat the room up, and it heats it up. And the opposite goes, summertime, you open up all the windows, you want the AC on, it cools the room, right? So the self image keeps what's usual and normal and familiar to you all the time. So if you're used to a certain salary level, so used to having being single or being in rough relationships or good relationships and really healthy ones, whatever's normal to you, it'll keep habit and normal. And I think that's the key to everything. You change your self image, you'll attract easier, you'll manifest easier, you'll accomplish easier overall.
How can we change our self-image? Some people talk about stacking undeniable proof, so basically just taking action, and then other people see it differently and they want you to, do the affirmations and maybe actually go back and look at trauma and limiting beliefs. So how do you approach that?
Yeah, I take a conglomerate of all three actually that you're mentioning there. The law of action, I very much believe in. So if you can stack some evidence and just start moving towards it, going through the uncomfortable patches, going through the scary moments, doing the things you know you need to do, I think that's huge. Number two, though, I do a self-image script. So I write out in the third person exactly who Scott Haug 2.0 is or 3.0. I write that out and I say it out loud. I'll listen to it audio form. I'll visualize it. So I do really believe in making sure that the mind is creating through action of internal action as well, making sure that's all in the set point. And then third, I actually do a lot of trauma healing with myself and clients as well, because a lot of times there's tucked back trauma and memories we don't want to see. And sometimes my clients will say, I had a great childhood. I don't have trauma. And what I give them as an example, I had somebody that was the youngest of three or four siblings. Every time they played board games like Monopoly, they lost every time because they were the youngest. So at that time, that was a trauma for them because it took on meaning. And it took on the meaning, I must not be good enough. I must be a loser. The client's 50 years old, still thinking, I must not be good enough. I must be a loser. And we circled back to 45 years ago. It was because every time he played games with his siblings, he always lost. That's a trauma. It's not a trauma because of what happened. It's a trauma because what meaning was created. He has a self-image of I'm worthless. I'm unworthy. If we can go back to that trauma and I do a 20-minute, very, very deep technique with them, it's a lot of people cry, sob. There's a lot of emotions that come out, but they release it. We snip the emotion or the meaning from the memory. So now they remember it, but it's not emotionalized. And now he's like, I don't feel worthy or unworthy. I just am. So I take an approach of using all three of these to change the self-image. I think that doing internal work and action is really, to me, the number one way. Is
What a belief to live with for that long of your life. I I know that I've done a lot of inner work on myself as far as letting things go like that, and but I always think there's gotta be more, like there's layers to this. And it's like, how do you find it all? How do you let go of it all? How do you know when it's all gone? Is it ever all gone?
yeah. I don't know if it's ever all gone. Even for me, like there's just so many layers of different things. And that's why I did Iboga, the plant medicine, about 3.5 weeks ago. And because I just felt called to it, I was like, I'm ready to go even deeper. That was a very intense ceremony, very challenging, but letting things go. How I knew that I needed more deep healing. This is what I guide all my clients on. I even have a couple of YouTube videos just to make sure that people can kind of understand it. Is that if you have a recurring theme in your life that is not preferable, there's something to heal. You'll see this often easily in romantic partnerships. You'll see the dance, anxious attachment, anxious avoidant, right? We all kind of heard those attachment styles before. Why is that occurring as an example? Because there is a trauma battling a trauma. And when two people argue, they're basically two children arguing traumas, right? So if there's a recurring theme of money in, money out, there's no way for me to hold abundance. There's a trauma there. If I am seeing in my life, I just always feel like something's missing. Like I just don't feel whole today. And I go to sugar, overeating, or I go to overworking, or I go to any other addictive patterns. There's something to be healed. And at least with that awareness, what is coming into my life that's not preferable, that's recurring, you can start to look at what's the feeling this is causing me. I feel annoyed. I feel unworthy. I feel abandoned. I feel unloved, whatever it might be. I feel overwhelmed. When else did I feel a similar way in the early years between ages 3 and 10? And that will guide you to know what memories have linked to why the recurring theme is here. And when you solve that, you've learned the spiritual lesson or the karma, if you will, to release it. And I have to go through those patterns again. So that's my system, at least, that kind of helps out, keeps it simple because it's very complicated trauma stuff. So
Mhm. Can we talk about what happens when you are able to release it? Like, why should anyone even bother doing that? It sounds like a lot of work. It sounds like stuff I don't want to remember or think about. Like, what good is it going to do me to do that?
yeah, wonderful question. Well, if you look at most people in the world, I would guess, I don't have data for this. This is just a guess. This is what I, kind of represent. I would say at least 98% of the population, if not more, are walking around chronically unhappy, chronically in pain, fearful, doubtful, worried, concerned, constantly having health challenges because the body is the storage of all of this. So constantly having things going on in the body, whether it's sickness, whether it's all these other things going on. And the healing allows you to be at peace and not carry this around. So it is a tremendous amount of work. No sugarcoat. It's not a walk in the park always. It's a lot of effort. It's a lot of darkness that you need to look at. A lot of memories people don't even remember by disassociation, but then they start remembering when we do the healing. They're like, I don't know if I want to go there. I was just doing inner child work with one of my clients, and her inner child was showing her this dark cave because that's where she needs to go through the fear. And she's like, I don't want to go there. I don't want to go there. There was so much anxiety going in the body, but we helped guide her. And then once she got in there, she's like, oh, I can't believe I was so scared of this place. It's full of light and beauty and goodness, and it was gone. Right. So it is a lot of work, a lot of effort, it's a lot of courage. But on the other side, you feel whole, present, peaceful. You can be a better husband or wife, better father, mother. You can be a better manifester. bring in more money easier. You can feel just like you can walk around as if you just feel like really good about who you are. So the reward to me is 10,000 times more than the effort that you're going to put in. Because who wouldn't want to walk around just being in a healthier body, healthier place, healthier mind, I think overall.
Mhm. Yeah, oh, that hits home. Especially like from your example, the woman who was losing at Monopoly, what was her mantra that she had, that she was a loser or
Yeah. That I must not be good enough and I
mm,
must be a loser.
yes. Okay, so just even that one, like if you let that go, imagine what you can manifest into your life once you don't believe that anymore.
Exactly. It's amazing. Like you start removing some of this, all these beautiful puzzle pieces come in, and that's what you call flow. That's what you call like, wow, things are actually happening. And I don't have to work so hard at so many things and force things to be and have all these things go on. It's like, this is kind of nice. Like, I kind of like this flow that starts to happen.
Hmm. I have so many other things I want to talk to you about, but I'm going to let you choose what feels the most important to share that we have not covered yet today.
That's a big one because there is so much to cover. I would say this is that kind of like it's not motivational, but maybe a little bit of encouragement is that no matter where you're at in life right now, no matter what's going on, no matter how things are going, something bigger and better can still happen. And sometimes that's all we need to hear. You are not put here to suffer all the time or go through all this turmoil all the time. If you can stay present for this moment and really just say, what am I being called to step into next? Your soul will guide you so that you can ease the suffering and allow yourself to be in a greater world. And what I mean by the word suffering, that's kind of loaded word. What I mean is difficulties and a lot of challenges and a lot of things you just don't want to deal with anymore, right? If you keep that light and you keep that possibility open, I promise spirit will find a way, or whatever you want to call it, God, universe, higher self, whatever you want to call this thing. If you believe in something higher, it'll find a way to provide you the answers, the keys, the opportunities in the door to have something bigger happen in life. And sometimes I just need that simple message in my life. So,
Mm, yeah, that's a beautiful reminder.
yeah.
I have two closing questions for you, but before I ask them, where can the listeners go to hear more, learn more about you and your work?
Yeah. I would start with my YouTube channel or Instagram. Both have visual drawings of very basic yet deep manifestation principles. So you could just take it and run with it like 20-minute video. I literally give everything for free. All the methods, the practices, go through them. It'll be a good starting place. If you're looking more for like a structure or curriculum, we have Prosperity Magnet on our school group. That's school.com/Scott Haug official. And you can go on there and you can go ahead and we have modules step by step, week by week, directions, all that good stuff. So one side, if you want to just get started, the other side, if you want some sort of step by step curriculum for you. So
Great. That will be in the description. And my first question for you is what is your number one health tip? So that could be spiritual, emotional, physical, diet and nutrition, anything. Just the one piece of advice that you would like everyone to know.
yeah, you said for health, it kind of cut out for me there. You said health?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I would say for health, sleep way more than you do if you feel you need it. There's too many Instagram posts out there, Facebook posts that say billionaire habits. Wake up at 4 a.m. every day and do all these things, right? Which I don't actually believe in because if you look at the people posting them, it's usually, nonsense stuff. But sleep is one of the biggest things for me. Quality of sleep. Increase the quality of sleep, rest a little bit more when you need to, allow your body and mind the relaxation. We live in a go-go world, but often relaxing, overwhelm dissipates the stress and often relates right to the body and health. You just feel better in your body.
Your last, and you get to choose a number 1 through 100, which will correlate with a more personal question.
Okay. Number 77.
77 is, what's the role of suffering in life?
Hmm. Suffering is for spiritual enlightenment and evolving your soul. So what I believe suffering is the equal and opposite coin to spiritual lesson opportunity. So in the suffering, we get in victimhood. On the other side is being the creator and understanding what spiritual lesson is in the suffering that I have not yet learned. And when we learn the lesson, we evolve our consciousness. And that's what I believe it to be.
Yeah. And when we don't learn the lesson, we repeat it,
Yeah.
right? Over and
Yeah.
over until we do.
Yeah. Not fun, but that's kind of how it happens, at least.
Yeah. Part of what we signed up for here.
Right.
Thank you so much, Scott Haug. This has been really great. I love your work. I love everything that you're sharing and talking about, and it's been lovely to connect with you.
Yeah. Thanks, Jessica. And everything that you're embodying, all the health, wellness, all the different things you put out there is amazing for the world. I appreciate everything you do very much.
Thank you so much, and right back at you.
Thank you.